Hello and welcome back to Some Boy Online. Now today we're going to be going over all 200 plus references that I've managed to find in Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Fowl. So I've spent a good few hours going through this film, like frame by frame, and trying to find every reference to the other Wallace and Gromit films. So there's over 200 Easter eggs basically that I managed to find here, and there's inevitably going to be more stuff popping up. So this might be a very long video, so without further ado, let's go. So the film opens outside of 62 West Wallaby Street during the events of The Wrong Trousers, just before the final scene. There are gnomes here in the opening shot, and they're used as a kind of foreshadowing, but unfortunately don't perfectly match the gnomes that we actually saw in The Wrong Trousers. Here we've got the plot-centric teapot with the same dark brown design that we've seen in the previous films. The blue diamond, which some complained was a retcon, is the actual name of the original diamond, as written down in Feather's plans in Wrong Trousers. They've merely altered its appearance to better suit the actual name, giving it a blue glow, whilst the sack it's held in is the same. Beneath the diamond is a box of crackers from A Grand Day Out, and Wallace sports his slippers, string vest and pyjamas from Wrong Trousers, with his red dressing gown from Were-Rabbit. The red telephone he uses is from Were-Rabbit. PC Mac from Were-Rabbit is revealed to be the policeman that Feathers was handed into, as we hear the voice of Peter Kay reprising the role.
Oh, is that the police?
Feathers is tied up in the rope that we see at the end of The Wrong Trousers. After being handed into the police station in Wrong Trousers, we see him presumably being taken to the zoo after his sentencing. JB, presumably for jailbird, is scratched into the inside of the police car. We see Feathers' set of keys with a fish key ring, and one based on the Aardman star is attached as well. The measuring tape used for scale in the museum and the rubber glove used as a chicken disguise are also thrown into the tray. The Feathers McGraw leitmotif returns and is used heavily throughout the film.
That will include your breakfast.
This is the first time we've ever heard Feathers McGraw's name being spoken in a film.
Feathers McGraw, you have been found guilty of the attempted robbery of the blue diamond.
A variation of the Welcome to the Zoo sign outside the enclosure. Feathers McGraw's prison scenes are a direct homage to 1991's Cape Fear. Newspapers are a constant in Wallace and Gromit, and we've got one here. Full story page 2 could be a nod to the fact that we're just now finding out the full story in this sequel to The Wrong Trousers. Obligatory horror-esque title reveal. Vengeance Most Fowl is likely derived from Murder Most Fowl, a line originally from Shakespeare's Hamlet, with murder being substituted for vengeance and fowl, now spelt with a W, referring to birds collectively, and in this case Feathers McGraw. The opening titles consist of pictures on the wall of Wallace and Gromit's house, much like Were-Rabbit, with Peter Kay being the only actor to feature in both versions. Accompanied by Julian Knott's Wallace and Gromit theme from A Grand Day Out, featured many times throughout the film. The first picture shows a young Gromit beating Wallace and a child in a sack race, with Wallace seemingly wearing a hairpiece. So this is the youngest we've seen them, bar that one picture in Were-Rabbit. There's a beach photo wherein Wallace has a cheese ice lolly from this 1998 Radio Times cover. On the right is an old photo which, according to Google, is from the last decade, but I can't for the life of us find it in any of the films. Gromit's room and the framed bone picture on the wall. There's a model of the orange rocket from A Grand Day Out. The green radio is reminiscent of the one Feathers hijacks. The bed cover also has the same design as Wrong Trousers, but perfectly matches later versions seen in A Close Shave and Were-Rabbit. This is presumably the same dartboard from Gromit's door and is now lying in a basket in the corner. One of the 3 rocket wall ornaments can be seen to the left, of course from Wrong Trousers, and we'll get a better look at them later on. Whilst Wallace's flashing eyes call back to the portraits of each anti-pesto customer in Were-Rabbit. Wallace's room from Wrong Trousers. The breakfast button Wallace presses to get Gromit's attention has the same design and buzzing sound effect as in Wrong Trousers.
Another great day of inventing beckons.
This time, instead of slippers, breakfast, newspaper, walkies, it reads breakfast, newspaper, snoozy chalk, and slippers, with walkies been substituted for the snoozy chalk, which is in itself a product featured in an advertisement as Feathers scales the museum in Wrong Trousers. There's a set of drawers with golden knobs to the far left, which is seen in that film. There's these blue undies from Were Rabbit, a hammer and saw like those used by Wallace in A Grand Day Out, a golf club, which is a possible reference to the VR experience A Grand Getaway, what looks to be the claw tool used to capture rabbits in Were Rabbit, and the cheese pitcher from Wrong Trousers on the wall to the far right. The invention used to get Wallace out of bed has appeared in every film since Wrong Trousers and has evolved every time. In Loaf and Death, a sign denoted this as the Get You Up, and in Vengeance Most Fowl, it's now the Get You Up Deluxe, which if I'm not mistaken is like the only piece of evidence that suggests Loaf and Death has took place before this film. The Cornish ware W and G mugs with the blue stripes as prominently featured in Were Rabbit. I'm trying to think of a better way to phrase this, but essentially Wallace's backside can be seen pressed against the glass as he's ejected from the bath and into this clear glass tube. I bring this up as it was also seen in Loaf and Death, so this is a recurrent thing now. The blue cups with yellow dots on the top shelf was seen in Were Rabbit and Loaf and Death. And this is reminiscent of Wallace's helmet from Close Shave, now with a blue stripe down the middle. Although different designs, the layout of the cup, plate, salt and pepper and toaster is exactly the same as the start of Wrong Trousers. Tank Top Man is on a magazine, which is a reference to the clothes retail brand Top Man. The Jam Ballista from the Wrong Trousers and more recently the AR experience Jamtastic returns once more, now loaded with the likes of marmalade, cheesy mite, lemon curd and peanut butter. Gromit is now prepared with shades as a result of previous trauma, and he's only worn these once before in a retro mug design.
Cracking toast, Gromit.
This quote is directly from Wrong Trousers.
Oh, cracking toast, Gromit.
Outstanding bills as seen in Wrong Trousers, once again due to excessive inventions from Wallace. Brown Flakes as a parody of Bran Flakes. These also appeared in Were Rabbit. Wallace's basement returns, which was the location where the rocket was built in Grand Day Out, the Knit-O-Matic in Close Shave, the Mind-O-Matic in Were Rabbit, and the studio in the World of Invention TV series. So this is appropriately where Wallace invents Nobot. A protected by anti-pesto sign can be seen to the right of the wall, of course from Were Rabbit. Nobot's reveal parodies that of the Techno Trousers, foreshadowing him as a piece of technology that will go on to be hacked by Feathers. The recurring theme of Gromit not being able to warn Wallace of danger due to his lack of speech.
He's voice activated.
Nobot's UI is based off the Terminator. Gromit having a prized item in the garden that's inevitably destroyed harkens back to his marrow in Were Rabbit. Lots of the townspeople from Were Rabbit appear also, starting with Mr. and Mrs. Windfall.
Where did you get him from?
Well, actually, I made him myself.
What fun! Is he for hire?
Nobot calls Wallace Mr. Wallace, as Lady Tottington did in Were Rabbit.
Mr.
Oh, Wallace.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes, Mr. Wallace. How may I assist?
Chief Inspector Macintosh in the flesh, having been promoted since his appearance in Were Rabbit and now sporting a grey moustache.
Not yet, my sweetness. Soon, though. Oh, hey!
Speaking of, a photo on his desk reminds us of his younger appearance directly from Were Rabbit. Alongside it is a photo of his narrowboat, foreshadowing events later in the film. There's also a model of one in a bottle across the room. On the board behind Mac is the original Have You Seen This Chicken poster from Wrong Trousers. along with a few other poster designs featuring characters we haven't seen before and plenty of gags, generally taking the mick out of the inept police force in Wallace and Gromit's town. We can see depictions of PC Mac promoting the policeman's ball game and yoga for bobbies. He can also be seen shaking hands with someone, presumably when he worked his way up the ranks in this framed photograph to the left. We once again flash back to the events of Wrong Trousers, this time from PC Mac's perspective.
Oh yes, I played my part. Hello, hello, hello.
We can see that he's got combed over hair and sideburns, supporting that this is the youngest we've ever seen the character. He's reading a Bargain Today magazine, working his interest of the boats further back into the timeline. And although it's really hard to see, I'm 90% certain that the two figures on the magazine cover are Roddy and Rita from Flushed Away, from the shape of the nose to the hair and even the black tuxedo. And then the female has the same design with reddish hair and a green outfit. A much cleaner looking Feathers Wanted poster from the time can be seen on the wall. The Austin A35 van, as seen in Were Rabbit and Loaf and Death, is now repainted to feature the Gnome Improvements brand.
And now, Up North News, presented by Anton Deck.
Ant and Dec is a reference to British presenting duo Ant and Dec, who get a special thanks in the credits, likely meaning that they approved of the joke being used. In Feather's enclosure, we can see that he's made a scratch on the wall for every day he's been locked up. If someone could count how many of these that there are, it might actually be the closest thing we've got to calculating how much time has actually passed since Wrong Trousers. Gromit knitting, as first seen in Wrong Trousers, followed by Close Shave and Were Rabbit. Balls of wool are likely from Wendoline's wools. The knitting basket resembles the one seen in Wrong Trousers. The radio music that Gromit listens to is the theme from BBC Radio 4's Desert Island Discs. Gromit reads A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf instead of Virginia Woolf, also emphasising Gromit's enjoyment of his own space, which Feathers took from him in Wrong Trousers. Norbot's hijacking of Gromit's radio mirrors what Feathers did in Wrong Trousers, and his collection of dog-themed vinyls also returned from Wrong Trousers and Loaf and Death, with Walkies on the Wild Side by Rue Lead being a parody of Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed. Gromit's inability to sleep due to the obnoxious noise is another Wrong Trousers parallel, and him throwing Norbot into the basement mirrors what he did to Hutch in Were Rabbit. We see the zoo's now aged and weathered exterior, which is now surrounded by tightly packed together houses and overgrown trees, further suggesting that lots of time has passed. Feathers sawing and hammering in the same manner as Wallace in Grand Day Out. His contraption once again straps around his neck like the remote control for the Techno Trousers. A hole behind a poster on a prison cell wall is from Shawshank Redemption. He's crafted a peeping hole through this brick that happens to have eyes on it in the same manner as Gromit did with the Meterbix box in Wrong Trousers. On the zookeeper's desk we see a stuffed crocodile like the ones that devoured Paella in Loaf and Death, which was in the very same zoo. Here's an actual map of Wallace and Gromit's town, where you can see the police station and a marina, complete with different street names such as Lumpsley Road, Tuppenny Lane, Duck Creek Road and Back Lane. Feathers sweats profusely when his plan is almost jeopardised, exactly like in Wrong Trousers, and Wallace's love of cheese is referenced when it's revealed to be his chosen password as opposed to Gromit or inventing. Amongst an unorganised cluster of unnamed folders, one named Cheese Pics can be seen on Wallace's desktop, inferring that he enjoys to look at such pictures. Feathers is presented with the I'm not a robot captcha prompt, requesting he select all pictures containing cheese, one of which is the moon, which causes Feathers to hesitate before selecting it anyway. As we know from Grand Day Out, the moon is indeed made from cheese in the Wallace and Gromit universe. 8-bit rendition of the Wallace and Gromit theme.
Welcome to my top secret files.
The Nobot interface labels parts Techno-Tum and Techno-Toes as a homage to the Techno-Trousers. There are many other gags hidden in here, but the most interesting is date and time, which reads vaguely in past, in reference to the fact that nobody knows when Wallace and Gromit is set. The Matrix. Nobot's hands twitching call back to Hutch when he's thought to be evil in Were-Rabbit. Nobot uses a drill, as Feathers did, to maliciously modify the Techno-Trousers. When used, it makes the same sound effect as the one Wallace and Gromit use in Grand Day Out. The number plate on the car next door to Wallace and Gromit reads Daleks? The original intended voice of Gromit, Peter Hawkins, also voiced the Daleks, so I don't know if it's a reference to that, or the fact that they're just a stereotypical British thing. Gromit's reading Paradise Lost by John Stilton instead of John Milton. Nobot spinning round to face Gromit is a callback to how Feathers was introduced in Wrong Trousers.
That will include your breakfast.
Nobot's dead black eyes now match those of Feathers. Gromit's yellow raincoat from Wrong Trousers can be seen hanging up. A coat and hat belonging to Wallace that matches the outfit that Peter Sallis wore as Norman Clegg in Last of the Summer Wine is also hanging up there, and many have pointed out that it's a lovely tribute to the late actor, as if he's just kind of hung up his coat and has let Ben have a go at voicing Wallace while he's away. But it's not a new thing, it did actually appear in Loaf and Death as well. In the hallway we can also see the same wallpaper design and stained glass window on the front door as in Were-Rabbit. Wallace's Gnomon device uses multiple CRT TVs to display one image, giving the effect of a widescreen, which was the focus of the N-Power advert Revenge of the Kilowatts from 2010.
It's even scarier on widescreen, eh, lad?
This bronze microphone resembles the one seen in Wallace and Gromit's World of Invention. The van's number plate now reads Odd Jobs after previously being Hop to It in Were-Rabbit and Donuts in Loaf and Death, to match whatever they're doing at the time. There's a sheep ornament on top of the fireplace behind Wallace, which looks like Shirley from Shaun the Sheep, but could just be a regular sheep from the flock. We see a parody of the real-life neighbourhood watch sign, edited to feature PC Macintosh as the policeman. Gromit is thrown in the garden shed to keep him from foiling the evil plan, much like when he's imprisoned in Close Shave, or more specifically, thrown into the anti-pesto trap by Victor Quatermain in Were-Rabbit. Nobot turns once again, but this time we hear the music cue from when Feathers locked eyes with Gromit in the Meterbix box. So the names are kind of lost on us at this point, but Wallace and Gromit's neighbour from Were-Rabbit returns and has a similar speaking role. At first I thought this was Mr. Dibber, but apparently he's got a grey moustache in Were-Rabbit, so these are two different characters. It's very confusing. But these two appear to be the same.
Sweet tight.
Where's me tools?
In Chief Inspector Macintosh's locker, we can see a Hawaiian shirt that he wears upon retiring later on in the film, possibly referencing Peter Kay wearing such a shirt in his Is This the Way to Amarillo music video. On the crime board, there's a few more of the townspeople from Were-Rabbit, in addition to Mr. Windfall from earlier in the film. Mr. and Mrs. Mulch make an appearance despite not being in the film physically.
Oh, Reg! Me teeth!
And there's also Mr. Kalichi, who does pop up later on. We've also got this woman, and this fella who bounces up and down. And yeah, this has by far been the most difficult part of this whole thing. Also taking into consideration that the characters may have aged and therefore changed the designs a bit. So it's like, where do you draw the line between someone just looking similar and actually being the character? The Nobot's hand detaches on a hinge to reveal a concealed weapon in the same manner as an Auton from Doctor Who. The Nobots apply Wallace's slippers as Feathers did in Wrong Trousers. A magazine reads Gardens of the Galaxy in reference to the Marvel film series, featuring Alan Titchmarsh, a play on British gardener and TV presenter Alan Titchmarsh, who also receives a special thanks in the credits. The aforementioned Snoozy Chalk from Wrong Trousers is brought into prominence as the Nobots use it to sedate Wallace. Very cool to see a seemingly random background element from the old films play a big part in the plot. This Gromit-shaped hole cut into the shed calls back to the Kraken Contraptions episode, The Bully-Proof Vest, in which we see the same thing. Gromit splashes water on Wallace from a vase as he does in Loaf and Death.
I think these matches are a bit damp.
We can see earlier in that film that this method does usually wake him up, but it fails to here due to the Snoozy Chalk. Wallace's line,
I don't know what's got into you lately.
is lifted directly from Were-Rabbit,
I don't know what's got into you lately.
as Gromit is trying to warn Wallace of something in both instances. Chief Inspector McIntosh goes to get his tash trimmed for the grand opening, but when we see him later on, it doesn't actually look any different. As part of the mob outside Wallace's house, we actually see the farmer from Shaun the Sheep, who surprisingly has a few more cameo appearances than you might know of. You can see the back of his head here, and his lower half behind this sign. Mr. Kalichi also appears in person, and to the left we have Mr. Leechin, who is actually voiced by Ben Whitehead in Were-Rabbit, with the role ultimately leading to him voicing Wallace. Were-Rabbit parallel with Wallace slamming his front door and leaning against it in panic, the motorbike and sidecar from Close Shave. Now that's a big, juicy Easter egg. Gromit dons his boots from Were-Rabbit, along with the aviator hat and goggles, also from Close Shave. The number plate of the car that Gromit nearly has a head-on collision with reads, "Ah!" It has the Coen brothers on the back, a play on directing duo the Coen brothers. Wallace's Gnomon device shows that the Nobots are right next to Gromit, but it's revealed that they're actually on a different floor. This is straight out of the 1986 film Aliens.
6.
Can't be, that's inside the room.
5 meters, man.
Gromit uses an extendable dog lead to scale the tree, as Feathers used the measuring tape in Wrong Trousers, while some of the zoo's structures, such as this clock monument, matches what we see of the zoo's interior in Loaf and Death. Feathers spinning round on his leather chair, caressing a seal pup, is a direct reference to the James Bond villain Blofeld doing the same with a white fluffy cat. He's famously the arch nemesis of Bond, as Feathers is to Wallace and Gromit. We can also hear a homage to the James Bond theme in the score as this happens. The rubber duck is thought to be a reference to the Penguin from Batman Returns, paying homage to the vehicle of another villainous penguin who escapes prison. Feathers applies the rubber glove and admires it in his handheld mirror as he did in Wrong Trousers. He then turns to face Gromit exactly as he did in that film, but in a twist, he actually does see him this time. Feathers performs Gromit's signature salute before ordering his execution, and we get another iconic music sting from Wrong Trousers. Gromit very distinctly makes a yelping sound as he falls from the branch. Though a famously mute character, Gromit has made subtle yelps and growls in the previous films. However, this is probably the most prominent instance of it. I actually asked Nick Park about Gromit's original voice in an interview.
You'd hear Wallace say something, and then he'd go, you know, sort of, and do a sort of mimic, a doggy kind of mimic of it.
And I should have also inquired as to who produced the sound for Gromit here. Could it be Nick himself? It's possible. In Loaf and Death, there's posters reading "Lion Keepers Always Needed," and this formidable lion named Gavin is presumably the reason behind that. Norbot's interface reads Maximus Shrubus, presumably in reference to Maximus Aurelius from the film Gladiator. Gromit saves Norbot in the same manner as he does Shaun in Close Shave. Feathers plays Toccata and Fugue in D minor on an organ. He originally listened to organ music on the radio in Wrong Trousers, so this is a natural evolution of that. And him playing this particular tune in a submarine mirrors that of the villainous Captain Nemo in 1954's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The world's best boss mug is a reference to the US version of The Office.
I think that pretty much sums it up. I found it at Spencer Gifts.
The museum returns from Wrong Trousers. The same background characters gather once again for the grand reveal of the blue diamond, but we actually get a closer look at the farmer, who's scratching his head in confusion as to why he's there just as much as we are. The code to unlock the vault is 999, the UK's emergency telephone number. Gromit is looking through the window of the museum for the blue diamond, in a parallel to Feathers doing so in Wrong Trousers. Wallace is playing the Wallace and Gromit theme on his piano.
Gnomes have gone. Gadgets have gone.
With the sheet music naming the piece Quattro Formaggi in Universe. Looking this up reveals that it's actually an Italian pizza topped with 4 different types of cheese.
I didn't know it could do that.
Referencing the basement opening up in different ways across the films. With this different camera angle, we can also see Wallace's anti-pesto boots on the floor by the door.
Oh, woman. Everything's fine. Just come
straight in.
An example of the dangers of AI voice cloning, which is a very real thing. It's been suggested many times that AI could have been used to recreate Peter Salas's Wallace voice for this film, so its use here seems to act as a warning as to why it's not a good idea.
Good grief. It's you. Again.
Is a very distinct reference to the reveal of Feathers in Wrong Trousers, with Wallace still failing to see through his chicken disguise.
Good grief. It's you.
Norbot slides down a ladder, close shave style. In this alternate look at the flashback, beside Feathers is the empty milk bottle he was originally caught in, along with parts of the train and its tracks from the train chase sequence, which are lying alongside him as well.
That's Vengeance Most Fowl.
Title drop. In the cupboard behind Wallace and Gromit is the exact same box of porridge from A Close Shave. From a different angle we can see a box of Sud-U-Like, the brand of soap used for their window cleaning company in the same film. Then there is a smaller box below it. Gromit's red spiked collar and lead from Wrong Trousers is hanging up on the right. Feathers plays Born Free by Matt Monroe on the radio, emphasising his freedom, much like the use of Tie a Yellow Ribbon in Wrong Trousers, which was referring to an ex-convict returning home. The downhill office chair and car chase calls back to this scene from Loaf and Death, seemingly taking place on the same long downhill street. The boat that Wallace and Gromit hijack has a blue and white checkered design on the curtains. This is Sillytoe Tartan, originally associated with the police in Scotland. The reason will become clear in a second. The name of the boat that Feathers hijacks, the Accrington Queen, references both the 1951 film The African Queen and the British town of Accrington. Gromit touches the two wires together to hotwire the boat, as he did with the Techno Trousers. The boat Wallace and Gromit are in is named Dun Nicken, with Nicken being British slang for arresting people, and further hinting towards this being Mac's retirement boat before it's actually revealed.
Hang on a sec. That is mine! Hey, stop in the name of the law!
Macintosh once again accidentally turns on his megaphone as in Were Rabbit,
The beast isn't actually there, yes?
so that Feathers can clearly hear that the police are on the way.
I think that's Feathers McGraw, Chief. They're trying to stop Feathers McGraw.
Feathers McGraw! Don't be ridiculous.
Nuns are constantly dismissed as completely innocent, which we also saw in Loaf and Death when they're carrying boxes of kittens. Wallace is being dragged along in his pyjama bottoms and string vest as Gromit pursues Feathers McGraw in a chase. Does that sound familiar?
Don't worry, Gromit. I'm cool. Right behind you.
Feathers produces a cheese cutting knife as seen in A Close Shave's opening. Perhaps the biggest cameo in the film, the farmer from Shaun the Sheep makes his full appearance. He's even voiced by John Sparks, who plays him in the series. We can also see his blue tractor from the series as well. And to top it off, we appear to actually be on Mossy Bottom Farm, judging from the very specific wall design. The no parking sign is a reference to the delicacy Yorkshire parkin, a kind of oatmeal gingerbread. Mary Poppins.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
Feathers McGraw on an actual train as opposed to a toy one. This whole final showdown is a homage to the Mission Impossible films, but this part in particular is right out of Dead Reckoning Part 1. We've got Yorkshire border, keep out, but then on the flip side we've got Lancashire border, no, you keep out, in reference to their historic rivalry. Madam Butter Pies is on the train as Feathers escapes, being a reference to both a Lancashire delicacy and Madam Butterfly, which is an opera famously in 3 acts. So people are theorising that we'll see a third and final showdown with Feathers McGraw at some point. Gromit does his classic salute back to Feathers. There's a Blue Peter badge on a backpack in PC Mukherjee's locker, placed there by a young fan who got to visit the set on the show. It's noted that Feathers is still wanted, with possible future disguises being noted, including a vase, traffic cone, bowling pin, lampshade, fire extinguisher, a toucan, and a standard plastic glasses, nose and mustache getup. It's seemingly implied that he's already stolen the Mona Lisa, with this headline reading, "Something smells fishy about this theft," whilst it's also mentioned that the crown jewels are on high alert, which could be a possible future plot point. Upon Mac's retirement, he resides on his boat, wearing his Hawaiian shirt from earlier, with a pub named the Codger's Arrest in the background. Codger being British slang for an elderly man, namely Macintosh in this instance. The Ex-Coppers magazine is reading has an article on Macintosh by Law and Order, referencing the US crime drama Law and Order. And the boat that speeds past Macintosh is appropriately named Flying Duck, perhaps implying that he doesn't give a flying duck. The newspaper Gromit's reading says local lads put on a grand show, i.e. a grand day out, whilst an article on Wallace reads no longer a nasty, crooked, thieving little tow rag, quoting the old lady who brandished him as such earlier in the film.
Everything will be right as rain before you can say,
Nasty, crooked, thieving little tow rag!
The teapot is glued back together, showing Wallace returning to a slightly more balanced and traditional lifestyle, a nice pull focus on a horrified Gromit a la Loaf and Death. The repurposed Patomatic on wheels doing good is given strong vibes of repurposed Preston on wheels doing good. The credits mostly consist of framed photos that we've already seen throughout the film, but the ones of Feathers feature in front of the wallpaper from his room in wrong trousers. What's interesting is that the photos matching Wallace's wallpaper features a character that we haven't seen before, potentially his mother. There was a photo of what's presumed to be his grandmother in wrong trousers, so this adds to the lore. As a parody of the famous Scream painting, wherein he's wearing a string vest like Wallace's and is screaming because he's dropped his ice cream in Blackpool by the looks of it, which happens to be the home of a Wallace and Gromit theme park attraction. The Wallace and Gromit theme is played on bagpipes in reference to Norbot's earlier use of this instrument, and we finally get a photo based on the original Wallace and Gromit portrait of the two of them, now featuring Norbot in between them, even though it'll most likely disappear, just like poor Fluffles, who unfortunately doesn't seem to be referenced in any way, shape or form. So that was the 200 plus Easter eggs that I could find in Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Fowl. Having never done this before, I knew it would be a large undertaking, and it certainly has been. I know there's some other references and Easter eggs in terms of inspirations from famous films. Once you start getting into very kind of vague film technique references, the list ends up growing exponentially, and yeah, I want to find find everything that referenced the older films and just kind of connected the whole world, because I know that's something that people really like to see. Some parts of it were really fun when you're just staring at these frames and then suddenly something jumps out that's actually really important. Although a lot of it is wrong trousers stuff, there's some surprising amounts from the other films as well. So yeah, this has been an extremely long video and my voice is dying. Let us know what else you managed to spot down below and your thoughts on all the discoveries. So thanks for watching and I will see you next time.